While we're sitting in queue, I wanted to show you an article. It's an article, so it's reading, but I'm going to read it for you so you guys can be lazy, and I also let you know what I think of it. Because the end of the season is coming. They basically announced that it's going to be ending on the 23rd, so you got about 11 days to push your rating, get your titles, get your transmogs, all that good stuff. And I was looking on World of PvP, and CJ wrote an article that's called Anyone Can Be Duelist, a solo shuffle arena PvP guide for the average Joe. So I thought I could read this, you guys could hear it, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so the purpose of this guide is to help the average PvPer realize they too can achieve a goal of at least Duelist. Having said that, if you implement the tips provided here and actively work on improving, I have no doubt that you can go even further beyond. I'm writing this in the context of Solo Shuffle, but most of the principles and tips provided are equally applicable to other brackets. I realize there exist video guides very similar to this, but some people still prefer written media, believe it or not. So if this helps, even a single person, then the mission is accomplished for me. A single person, let's go, baby. So if you guys want to check this out, we'll put it, I'm going to put this on YouTube. I'll put it in the comments below. I'll link it here. And shout out to CJ if you guys wanted to check out the article. But I figured we could check it out. So background, I've been playing WoW on and off since vanilla. Did BGs as a kid. He became a PvPer, and PvP was the only content he sought to partake in. Sounds familiar. Any PvE I did was ultimately with PvP in mind. I was always the guy raiding enemy cities, posted up in the Gorbashi arena, dueling outside cities, tryharding my way to 1vx clips and BGs. Ironically, despite a short stint dabbling in arenas on my original account, now long gone, I wonder what happened. What happened to his original account? I've never done more than a handful of games in any bracket in any expansion. This is mostly because I never had any RL friends to group with and lacked the patience to find stable teammates via LFG. My playtime was also a very hit or miss. Once I entered college and beyond and never really played the full duration of any expansion. I'm now 36 with a family, a career, less playtime than sleep, which is already very minimal. So naturally, Solo Shuffle is a very welcoming addition to the game. We love Solo Shuffle, guys. I just like just reading this is like it still blows my mind that there's people that really think that Solo Shuffle should be removed. Huh? What are you talking about? Solo Shuffle is literally how majority of PvPers interface with the game. I think, anyways. At least to like rated PvP. Fast forward 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I've returned, maybe averaging 10-ish hours per week. Mostly late night when everyone in my house has gone to sleep. During this time, I've actually stick to 1 or 2 classes and just play Shuffle with every bit of playtime I get. And wouldn't you know it, I hit Duelist and still climbing. I currently have 2 Druids who are both 2100 and a Priest recently geared that's near 2k. I don't think I'm amazing at the game. Rather, I'm using myself and average Joe as an example. Okay, so his experience is basically he likes PvP. He's a big PvP advocate. He plays around 2100. But he's like he's an actual dad who doesn't play that much. So what does he say? He says, CJ, if you're not a multi-rank 1 player, even glad, how can I listen to anything you say? You might be shocked to hear this, but it's quite impossible to know enough valuable information about something without being the best at it. You might be shocked to hear this, but it's quite possible to know enough valuable information about something without being the best at it. Best at it, said activity yourself. Look to any major sport and you'll find experts, analysis, commentators, announcers who have who have either never played sports or never played at the highest level. I know a lot of basketball, for example, yet I've never played in the NBA. That's very interesting. You know, a lot of people don't like to hear that, but it is true, you know? Sometimes, like, even when it comes to, like, fitness, like, someone could know, like, just as, like, a different example, like, someone could know a lot. Like, the smartest trainer at the gym that I go to just looks like a totally normal guy. He doesn't even look like he works out. But he's the smartest guy there. He knows by far the most in terms of like your body, physiology, like how to properly train, all that stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, I guess he hasn't necessarily done it himself, but he's definitely the most knowledgeable, which is interesting. So I'm going to go over this stuff and I'll see I'll tell you what I think. You can learn something about the NFL from commentator AI Michael, despite I don't know anything about sports, so despite the fact that he's never played beyond high school himself. Even in the world of gaming, some coaches for esports teams have never played at a level that players and teams they coach. They have a great feel understanding of the game while lacking the mechanical skills to put it all into practice. I'd also argue that oftentimes top tier players are either so naturally gifted or have been so good for so long that they easily forget what the beginner or even intermediate stages of their development and experience were like. And so they say things, just do ABC and it's easy to climb. They're leaving a lot out. Finally, this guide is intended to help Peekaboo get over the hump of his first BlizzCon win. Sheesh. It's intended to help the average player achieve goals that they may have given up on. If you've never been 2100, I promise there's something in this guide that will aid your improvement. If you were to implement, or maybe none of it, it's new to you, you'll realize something you've never actually focused on doing well. So far, well written. Okay, CJ, he knows how to write. Getting started, before we get into the gameplay, there are some preliminary administrative things that must be covered. Add-ons and UI, there's no way around this. WoW PvP is a very information-intensive game, and the base UI doesn't provide the necessary tools or format to display the information or process it efficiently in a fast-paced environment like Arena, where hundreds of things are happening at any given moment. Installing a few add-ons, configuring them appropriately, and setting up a clean UI can go a long way. I do not work for SkillCap, but they recently produced a YouTube video detailing some... Okay, so there's the video. You guys can check out the article for it. Helpful add-ons, as well as walkthroughs on configuring the most essential ones. I suggest watching it. Their video will help you understand what these add-ons are used for. You'll want at minimum an Arena frame, Gladius or S Arena. Omnibar, yep, Omni CD. And honestly, as much as I hate to say it, if you're not using weak yet, you're probably trolling because all of your opponents are using them. Well, not all of your opponents, just 99% of them. And just the ones that are higher rated than you. So. Okay. Somebody said this is a good guide for people below Duelist. I don't think anyone over 2100 can get value from it. The thing is, most people are below Duelist. All right, keybinds. Having an efficient keybind setup can be a huge difference maker in terms of your arena performance. I'll list a few tips. Maybe I can... My keybinds are bad. If you're the person who always says I don't have enough binds for all my abilities, then you're either doing something wrong or not utilizing all the tools here to help alleviate the problem. The first and easiest tip that can help here is to buy an MMO mouse. I personally don't use an MMO mouse. I know a lot of people love it for WoW. It's very, very good. MMO mice are OP, but I don't want to get... The reason why I don't use an MMO mouse is because I don't want to be forced to use an MMO mouse. Like, moving forward, I don't want to make it... You know what I mean? Like, in my future, I don't want to have to use an MMO mouse, basically. So that's why I don't use it. I want to get used to it. But they can be very helpful if all you want to do is play WoW and you want to get better at WoW. They have 12 side buttons, which can be mapped to buttons on keyboards that you'll never be able to press otherwise. After that, especially if you don't want to use an MMO mouse, you have to start making use of modifiers such as Shift, Control, and Alt. Shift, Control, and Alt. I use all three of those. If you don't have to use all three of these, I find two suffice. Essentially, you can triple, quadruple your binds with the help of these modifiers. So your 2 key will do one thing, while Control 2 will do something else. Shift 2 will do something else. Yep. Regarding the above tips, I use that. I actually, originally, my #1 modifier was Shift. Now I think my #1 modifier is Alt. I don't know why. When I first started playing WoW, I never used Alt as a modifier, only Shift and Control. But Alt is my favorite. It's the most convenient and comfy. You just shift your thumb over to Alt from the space bar. So nice. Feels great. Regarding the above tips, something that's personally helped me, I've never seen anyone mention, is actually remapping the caps lock key to either Control or Alt. I find it super awkward to press Control. So I remap the caps lock key to Control. So while I play, I strafe with QE. Most of my primary damage or healing is on 1, 2, 3, 4. Pinky basically resting on near the caps lock modifier. It's also very easy to hit the Shift modifier. I don't have to do anything crazy, bending or stretching to actually hit the Control key. I like Control more than caps lock, but I've heard people like this. So that's maybe something that you could do. Make similar abilities with similar binds. This is most helpful if you play multiple specs. I bind in such a way that all my CC on one spec has the same binds as the CC on another. My PP Trinket has the same bind on all my specs. My big defense... Yeah, me too. I do this. It's the same thing. It's really good. My big defensive CDs are the same binds on all my specs. My movement-related abilities are the same binds on all my specs. This makes it very easy to swap between characters and not have to play mental gymnastics. Yeah, it's pretty much what I do. My big wall is always Alt 2. My interrupt is always 2. 2 is ranged. F is melee. My focus crowd control, like Poly and Fear, is always Shift Z. My focus kick is always V. You know, my major defensive is always 5. Dispersion, Divine Shield, Turtle, Ice Block. My snare is always Shift 1. You know, things like that can really help a lot if you want a multi-class. This one goes without saying, but your most often used abilities, which require a fast reaction time to save yourself, should be easier to access binds, while abilities which you rarely use or use less often can be binds that are a bit further away. If you're using an MMO mouse, though, this shouldn't be much of an issue. Yeah, I mean, there's some caveats to that. Like when you have like major defenses, I think you want to be really, really good. Like they want to be in a good bind. You know, like you want to be able to like bubble fast and bot fast and, you know, things like that. Ice block fast. Not that I would know anything about that, but yeah. But that I also, one thing I'd add to this is in the past, so before dragonflight, basically like my original keybinds were awful. And I still have some of my original keybinds that aren't too bad, but over the years I've been doing my best, especially on my mage, to rebind things to be more convenient. Like, for example, throughout my whole history of WoW, my mount keybind has been T. T is my mount. But T is actually a really good keybind. It's actually a really fucking good keybind. So having that as a mount doesn't really make sense. So now my mount is Shift T, and I can put T on something a little bit more rotational, you know? So don't be afraid to rebind. It takes a little while to get used to, but if it's going to be more optimal, I think it's definitely worth doing. Targeting, some of the crosses over with this previous section. You'll want to reinforce. You want to force yourself to grow accustomed to targeting enemy players with keybinds rather than clicking or tabbing. Sure, you can definitely click targets and tab and perform well enough, but target binding can be faster, more efficient in the long run, especially when hunters feign death, an elf shadow melds, or a druid mage comes out of self invis. You need to instantly CC them. So what a lot of people do, I do think having the binds is good, but there's actually a lot of people that click their arena frame to target and focus, which I don't think is ideal, but there are a lot of people that are very successful, really good players that literally just click. They have like their S arena, so their arena 1, 2, 3, just like right there in the middle of their screen or really close to it, and then they just click to like set their focus and to target and stuff, which I don't think is ideal, but some people do it. Sometimes I do it, but you at least, in my opinion, want to have like target arena 1, 2, 3 and focus arena 1, 2, 3. The way I always do this is ASD or my target arena, 1, 2, 3 binds respectively. It made sense for my brain to get used to it. They're sequential on the keyboard, and even though it was awkward to get used to it first, by forcing myself to play many games using this method, it essentially came off second nature. My focus target binds are caps lock, control, ASD. So that also makes sense. Yeah, that's great. Those are good binds. ASD for targeting, very convenient, and control ASD for switching your focus. If you're a healer or play a spec like Ret or Shadow Priest that offers a lot of party utility, you'll want to bind the target your party as well. I use a common method for this that I see many others use. I press my mouse wheel down to target myself, scroll up on the target. No, my brain just exploded. I press my mouse wheel down to target myself. Okay, so scroll down. I scroll up on the wheel to target party 2 and scroll down to target party 3. Oh, press down, scroll. Okay. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I just don't have the dexterity for it or what, but I hate using that as a bind. Scroll up, scroll down. I also have something in my brain always wants to zoom in and out on the camera. So that's like, I could never rebind that personally, but it is a good bind. There's an add called frame sort or something that'll make it so you're always party 1. Cool. That makes it very convenient. The only time I use my mouse to target is for totems or place AoE abilities like Priest Dome, Rop, Vortex. Okay, macros. There's no way to cover every possible macro out there for every class, but suffice to say, just about every spec I'm aware of utilizes at least a couple of them. Macros can be used to enhance the use of various abilities by making them come out faster, target more efficiently, or some other functionality. Examples of this would be a Priest Feather, always placed. Oh my god, that's so good. I love that. Feather's unplayable without that, by the way. I swear to God, that should just be like the base of Feather. I don't even know. Like, does anyone ever drop a Feather for somebody else? I feel like it's so rare. I've never seen it. It's really clunky. A free spin? Nobody uses it though. Okay, so where was I? Sorry. Priest Feather always placed on the target. Having AoE abilities like Rop, Dome, etc. always instantly come out wherever your cursor is rather than needing to confirm it. Yep. If you play a healer, a help harm macro always allows you to consolidate keybinds with one button. Yeah, that's a really good one. The help harm macro for priest, super good. So like, yeah, having your like offensive dispel and offense, like if you're targeting an ally, it defensively dispels them. If you're targeting an enemy, it offensively purges them. Like that's really, really big for things like priest. You can just be so efficient with some macros. Like I noticed that a lot with my sub rogue. You have so many keybinds. Like for example, when I want to like burst someone with Shadow Dance, I have a macro that uses Shadow Dance and uses Symbol of Death and uses T and uses my on-use trinket. You know, like it literally presses 4 buttons for me. If you don't have that, you're like, there's no way I'm gonna individually press all the buttons. You know, like it's decent to have them all keybound, so you can do that if you want. But yeah. If you'd like to learn what macros can be helpful for your specific spec, I suggest looking up a YouTube PvP guides, which usually cover them. Finally, perhaps most importantly, you will definitely want to macro certain abilities to Arena 1, 2, 3. For example, on Druid, I have both Bash and Cyclone set to this. This allows me to instantly and easily CC any target at a moment's notice, regardless of whether or not they're already targeted. This saves me time of actually needing to target them, since I'm often targeting my own team to heal them. This also comes in handy to get a quick insta-bash on an opposing Resto Druid or Rogue who comes out of stealth. Yeah, this is ideal. I don't do this. I use Target Arena 1, 2, 3, Focus Arena 1, 2, 3. I don't personally do this, but I know a lot of people that do. You know, like on Mage, you'll have Poly Arena 1, 2, 3, Counterspell Arena 1, 2, 3. Like basically, if you're gonna play Shaman, you have to use Sheer 1, 2, 3 as well. Like it's just a lot that I don't do myself. I probably am the worst for it, but whatever. If you want to get crazy, that's where MMO mouse will really help, I think, with keybinds like that. Gearing, I don't cover how to get gear, as it's already covered extensively on YouTube. Yeah, I have a YouTube guide for gearing if you guys are worried about the gearing thing. All right, yeah, there's guides all over YouTube. Find most efficient ways to get a fresh 70 to current max gear. However, I'd like to point out that gear you choose to equip for your spec and playstyle actually matters. You should prioritize certain stats based on your spec and build. For some of you, this will be haste. For others, mastery. I suggest utilizing either Murloc IO or Drustvar to see what top players of your spec are using. Yep, really easy to do that. I'll show you guys really quick what he's talking about. So if you want to see, like, you go to Drustvar, you can go to like, let's see here. I'll just show you really quick. So you go to PvP, you can go to like gear, for example. There's a lot of people that ask me like, can I see your gear? Can I see your build? You can literally just like go here and you can put these filters on too. You can say like, I only want to see mages that are 2400 and I don't like Europeans, so I'm only going to show US, and I only want to see 3v3 mages. Okay. Oh, okay, everyone. We got 36 people using this trinket. Okay, it must be the best. Okay, we got 18 people using this trinket. Okay, that must be the best. Okay, almost everyone's using this. Okay, blah, 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 blah. So you can see exactly what like your kind of best in slot is. Very useful. To see what the top players are using and go from there. Eventually you'll start to get a feel for your own playstyle and maybe realize something like, hey, I actually prefer play a bit more haste, but I'm learning when you can sacrifice mastery or verse for a bit more haste is a bit of a more advanced and will come with time. Copying gear setups to the top player is typically a good starting point. Just know that some top players are also good enough that they can sacrifice a bit of survivability like versatility, where you might not want to do that just yet. Also look at several profiles before making a decision so you avoid the one-off psycho build. Yeah. Yep, that's great. Internet, remember that your internet should be plugged into the modem. Haha. Jumping in. We got through all the boring prerequisites. It's finally time to jump into some solo shuffle almost. Controversial suggestion. There are probably going to be a lot of those who disagree with me here, but this next point is something I swear by if your goal is to accelerate and learn an improvement in solo shuffle. Play a healer. Yes, even you, the guy who made a DPS for 10 years, play a healer. Yeah. I'm curious what he says about that, but I actually think overall it's a good idea. You want to get better faster, and you'll learn way more about the game, cooldown trading, good positioning. It's true. CJ, I'm hearing that healing is the hardest role. Why should I start there? Generally, yes. Healing is considered the hardest role, but this can also depend on the healer you choose to play, as they are not equally difficult. A suggestion I'd give you is play one that it's on the easier end to play mechanically, as well as fairly strong at the moment would be Holy Priest. Yeah, same suggestion. Holy Priest, I think, is the most fun I think out of all the healers in the game that I've played, and I've played them all, Holy Priest for me feels like it is a good mix of like, it's not the most difficult. It has a really high skill cap, but you can do well not being that good. And there's a huge potential of the spec. And it's really fun. There are a couple others which are easy, but they aren't as strong, making them feel more difficult than they actually are, if that makes sense. The reason I suggest playing healers is because the goal here is to accelerate your learning and improvement. I'm the opinion that healing accomplishes this better than any other role. If for no other reason that the fact you'll have to spam games without waiting for a queue. Yep. Shorter queues, more games over X amount of time equals more opportunities to learn and work on areas of your gameplay at a rate for greater. More opportunities to learn and work on areas of your gameplay at a rate far greater than what you could do as an DPS. Yep. In addition to this, healing will also force you to work on certain aspects of Arena that you could legitimately ignore, although altogether as various DPS specs while still climbing. Yeah. Think of like Ret Paladins not using Sank, Shadow Priest not using Dispersion, Mages not using Ice Block. Like if you're a healer and you're not using your cooldowns, you're going to lose. That's a fact. Thinking you're on a certain level when you're really not. Healing forces you to not only pay attention to enemy health bars, status effects, but also your own team. It forces you to pay attention to not only enemy CDs, but also your own teams. And finally, it forces you to play more than any other role. Pay attention to positioning. These skills will help you tremendously when the time comes for you to switch back to DPS, if you choose to do so. I actually think this is a really good tip. People find healing frustrating, but I swear if you have a good like offensive healer, I really do think that he's onto something here, with healing being the best way to learn World of Warcraft PvP. But isn't healing boring? I've always played DPS. I was just like you once. I only played DPS. So I played DPS in every RPG or role-player shooter or any game where DPS and healing were both options. To be quite honest, I only swapped to healing because my playtime is severely limited. And so it was sheer pragmatism that led to my discovery of the joys of healing. One-eyed, tunnel vision, silverback gorillas who somehow produce more drool than... Okay, let's relax. All right, we got a Ret Pally queue too. All right, we're here. He's talking about healing and how fun it is. I'm going to quickly take a little break and hit my Ret Paladin up. So this guy's talking about, isn't healing boring? No, it's actually really fun. I know you want to play Macho Alpha, who does all the cool things and gets all the kills. But after you heal for any amount of time, you realize that healers can do some pretty cool things as well. And if someone helps you ego maintain the I must be alpha mindset, I think this is just whack. Like, does anyone actually think like I'm a DPS or I'm alpha? I don't think so. You can make so many cool plays on a healer. I swear. You can think of healers as the quarterback or point guard of any team. Also, I personally found healing to be quite fun, despite how stressful it can be, while somehow makes healing way more fun to me than any other game. It is, in fact, the one game aside from maybe two characters in Overwatch where I enjoy the healer support role. I think a lot of DPS players would agree if they gave it some time. And hey, if you really don't think so, there's a couple of healing specs like Discrease, where damage just isn't an option. Oh, it isn't just an option, it's required. Learn your optimal healing or damage rotation. This is actually way more important than people think. Doing like maximum DPS and maximum HPS is actually the difference between winning and losing a lot of games. So it's like, if you don't know how to, and you can actually learn this stuff doing Mythic Plus. It's really weird, but I swear, if you really want to min-max this stuff, first of all, you can compare amongst your peers in Arena, but you can also like start learning how your character works in like Mythic Plus and stuff. And it's going to be different than PvP, but it'll help you kind of understand like the fundamentals. And if your damage is absolutely atrocious, you'll realize something is wrong, or you're healing. It seems like an obvious point, but it really can't be overstated. A lot of games over time will come down to simply who did a better job of putting out damage and healing. Unfortunately, Arena can sometimes feel like Mythic Plus. If all the players are playing around the same skill level and executing their kits equally effectively, being able to put out more pressure or alleviate pressure to allow your team to go back to the offensive is a big deal. You might think you have your rotation optimized, but maybe under pressure you don't, or maybe what is optimal changes based on the circumstances, which in varying in Arena, when they do vary, you aren't adapting. There's no way for me to know what these areas will be for you. A little loud, man. There's no way to know what these areas will be for you, so watch some PvP guides of your spec on YouTube. Just as an example of my own experience as a Resto Druid, I still notice moments when I'm using Swiftman before I ever reapplied Adaptive Swarm or Send Ward. Sometimes I have to in urgent moments. Other times I could have waited, or other times I'm not waiting for Adaptive Swarm to actually reach the target since it has a travel time. Don't waste globals. The general rule of thumb here is always be casting, which obviously isn't applicable to every spec in the game, but at least on every caster and healer it is. If nobody needs to be healed, do damage. If you're moving, using instant cast. If you don't need to move, cast something. You shouldn't have a ton of empty globals where you do nothing at all. You'll have plenty of time to do nothing when you're stuck in CC for 9 minutes straight. After you get used to filling your globals, start focusing on optimizing them so you press them right. You press the right button at the most appropriate time. This is especially important on global intensive specs such as Resto Druids, where you often don't have enough time to fit in all the globals you like to get off. What's really interesting is Aug Evoker. I know I've talked about Aug Evoker, but Aug Evoker, you can actually always press a button. No matter what. Literally, no matter what, you can always press a button. If you cast Living Flame and you get interrupted, you can Sleepwalk. If you cast Sleepwalk and that gets interrupted again, you can use your Ebon Magic. If you get interrupted on your Ebon Magic, then you can use your instant blue ability, Azure Strike. You can literally always press a button, unless you're stunned or silenced. But like rotating through interrupts, you can actually continuously cast indefinitely. Like you always have something you can press on Aug. And there's other specs like that too, you know, like if you're a mage and you're going for a Dragonflight Poly, you should already have in your mind you're going to get interrupted, so you cast a Ring of Frost, you know? Little things like that end up being a big thing. Learn abilities, 5-head, okay. No, really learn them. I've been playing on and off since vanilla. I'm ashamed to say there's still abilities I don't fully understand at best. And at worst, I have no flipping clue what they do. This can seem daunting at first because of the sheer number of abilities that exist, but don't look at it as something to tackle all at once. Just chew off a little at a time. I don't know the importance of Soul Rot until a few weeks ago. As a healer, this kept me from understanding I needed to dispel it immediately. You could easily Google the major cooldowns of a spec you don't play or hover over them in game to help various add-ons display them, such as Omni CD, Weak Auras, Mez's Weak Aura package, definitely lit. What I like to do is anytime I see or hear an ability I don't understand, I'll make a mental note or even write it down and then go look it up when I get a chance. If you see X ability killed you in your details but you don't know what it does, Google it. Learning abilities will ultimately help you understand what you need to play around, especially as a healer, and what you can either ignore or just not worry about. This helps for understanding your own team's go window and negating your opponent's goes, even anticipating them before they happen. Yeah, this is big. And read your talents too. I was playing, I'll give you just an example. I was playing Asa Rogue, and I mess around on Asa Rogue, and I get the general idea of Asa, but I don't know how all the talents work. You garrote people, you rupture people, you shiv them, you kidney them. Cool, you're going to do all right. But there's a game, I have a very specific game in mind where I was just kind of tunneling one target. I was like, you know what? I'm going to let my team CC and I'm just going to tunnel one target. And it felt really bad. Just one target. I was just putting garrote, rupture, you know, I'd slice up. I was doing all my damage on the one target. And then I was watching a stream later on and somebody showed me this talent. They were just looking at their asset talents. They're like, yo, this one's pretty big. I can't really give that one up. And it's a talent that makes it so when you rupture, you get stacking agility. So if you have rupture on multiple targets, you end up getting something fucking crazy, like 20% more agility. So like just tunneling one target is actually horrible on Asa. It's really, really bad. And I didn't even know that because I didn't read the talents. And if you read the talents, then things make a lot more sense. Positioning. Honestly, out of any advice, Foxy Lama says, is Ven talking too fast for anyone else? Okay, I can slow it down. Honestly, out of any advice I've ever received, especially as a healer, if there's one area that I felt improved my gameplay and helped me get to 2100 the most, it was easily positioning. This is something everyone thinks they understand and thinks they prioritize, but the second everything hits the fan is when they forget about it. I didn't want to believe this about myself, but it was true and is still true. Though I have climbed mostly because of a focus on my positioning, I often mess it up or forget about it. There's no one-size-fits-all answer where you should stand, but as a general rule for healing, you want to be max range and have access to LOS. At max range, you'll be harder to CC by melees, as you'll see them coming from a mile away, harder to CC from casters as they may be out of their cast range, and it'll be more difficult for them to swap to you as you are not a target. You'll just be less valuable as a target, sorry. Standing by LOS makes it so you can dodge casted damage and casted CC as well. I promise that if you play at max range and near LOS and make it your absolute priority to be the healer who is CC'd the least every round, your rating will go up. This is much easier. This, of course, doesn't mean that you have to stay at max range. Once you get a better understanding of the game and know what cooldowns and CC the other team has available, you'll know when it's safe for you to go for your CC of your own, depending on your spec, or even just to reposition. Do not be greedy, constantly trying to CC the other healer, oftentimes using your CC on the DPS cooldowns. Both makes offensive and defensive. Both offensive and defensive is enough while you wait for an optimal window to CC the enemy healer, allowing them to make mistakes of positioning poorly themselves. Record and watch your gameplay. This is a huge one. Huge. This is like when you guys watch streams, like there's some people that do this a crazy amount, like Sea-Doo. I think one of the reasons why Sea-Doo still got it is because he's that guy that, how did we lose? Okay, this is what Sea-Doo does. I watch this. Well, what happened? Oh yeah, like, okay, so like, yeah, 10 seconds before the kill. Yeah, you could have done this. You could have done this. You could have done this. Yeah, I was one step out of a line of sight. I needed to do this better. Like every single game Sea-Doo loses, he just goes and analyzes it to the point where it's crazy. No, it's not crazy. I mean, he's winning, but like the best players in the game are actually just VOD reviewing constantly, looking at every little mistake. What went wrong? What fucking global should I have pressed? Like, was I out of position? Like, could you have kicked that? Blah, 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 you know? And even if you feel like you don't know that much about the game, I guarantee you, if you don't know much about the game, even if you watch your own gameplay, you'll realize things you could do better. All right. This is going to help you recognize your own mistakes. It's hard to realize all the mistakes you're making at the moment, or even harder to remember them after a queue session. Record your gameplay with any of the plethora of software out there. I use an NVIDIA GPU, so I record with the native Shadowplay. Others use OBS or something else. Every time I watch my gameplay, I sort of cringe because I see myself do a zillion things that should have been done differently, but it's helped me focus on improving arenas of my gameplay when I struggle. Very, very important, guys. Record your gameplay. Intentional improvement. I'm not sure if there's an official term for this, but intentional improvement is what I call it. Basically, it's way too easy to realize when you've got 55 things to work on and get overwhelmed. So what you do is actively pick like 2 of them every solo shuffle to put all your attention on improving. For example, if you're new to targeting Keybinds, you might want to force yourself to only target with Keybinds for a few solo shuffles until it becomes natural. Sure, you'll suffer in that small amount of sample games, but in the long run, that means nothing if the long-term goal is improvement. These goals can be literally anything. I've had rounds where I just focus on getting off more cyclones, rounds where I force myself to constantly be ready to death a sheep or fade a different CC. You can't be afraid of losing if you don't care about losing because of doing things like this. You just have to go through the process in order to learn. Yep. I record my deadlift, helps me get a ton of form, and looks great on Insta. Yes, sir. The way Sea-Doo does it is okay. That works for him, but I prefer to blame my teammates and make excuses. Yeah, that's a good thing to do too. Just keep queuing. Shuffle will feel extremely overwhelming first, especially if you're brand new to Arena. I promise you are not the only one that feels this way. In the initial stages, most healers feel like you're just staring at health bars the entire time and frantically pressing buttons to keep people up. The more you queue and the more you play, the slower the game gets. Not that the game itself slows down, but your perception of it does. This is so true. People are like, I don't know what to look at. How do you pay attention to so many things? Reps. Just do it again, 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 go again, go again. I would say, well, one thing I'll say about this just keep queuing thing is like, actually, let me finish it and then I'll say, this is due to factors such as no longer having to think about your keybinds. Now you have all the muscle memory, no longer having to constantly look down and see what cooldowns are available because you've gotten an instinctive feel for what should be up. You'll eventually be able to spend more time looking at the actual players on the screen, which will help your positioning. The only way you can get the game to slow down is to keep queuing. Then your brain will slowly become better at processing the myriad of information that's being thrown at you. Just make sure your UI is set up in a way that makes it so you can easily see and make sense of that info and that you understand what it means. Yep. This keep queuing thing, just remember too that every single player, including like your favorite players, Every player, Sea-Doo, Absturge, anyone you can think of has peekaboo. Like they have queue sessions where they lose a lot. Most of the time, no, but even your favorite players that you think are the best players in the game, they have queue sessions where they lose far more than they win. They get farmed. They get destroyed. You know what I mean? Yeah, even the Mize, exactly. So it's like losing doesn't really, I mean, it means stuff, but I've literally seen Absturge. I've seen Absturge lose like a 2K solo shuffle when he's literally like 2,800 on every healer. He makes an ult and loses at like 2K. So it's like shit can just happen, you know? Like this last shuffle on my Rep Paladin, my first 2 rounds, my team just died without pressing cooldowns. You know? It's crazy. Frickin' team. All right, anyways. I'm bad. That's good news for you. Lastly, I've included a YouTube video I just recently threw together with various clips of my road to 2100. I actually hesitated to include it because I make a ton of mistakes, and watching myself play, I feel like I'm watching someone much worse than what my rating suggests. Whether this because if you're able to see how sketchy my play is and recognize mistakes in my game, that's good news for you. If I had 2100 playing like this, there's no reason why you can. I myself need to work on 90% of the tips I provided in this guide. Knowing is the first step. Doing it is entirely different. I wish you the best of luck in your grind. Please let me know if any of this was helpful. Anywho, I love this community. I'm glad to see people who are new to PvP giving it a shot. Hope more and more will continue to stick with it and realize their goals are not unachievable. And here's this video. Side note, if you're better than me, like most of you probably are, feel free to review, critique my gameplay here so I can achieve my next goal of 2400. Let me know what I'm already doing right as well. Is what I need to work on. Cool. This guy says, I ain't reading all this, but looks like a good job to me, King. Yeah, so now you guys, that's why I read this for you. You know, it's like story time. But yeah, great. I thought this was great. You know, not everything needs to be from the perspective of like a multi-rank one. And yeah, getting to like 1,800, 2,100, 2,400, those are like serious goals that people work towards a long time, and feels good to get it, you know? Yo, CJ, thanks so much for the sub, man. I like this. And yeah, make sure you guys go. I don't even know if I don't even have a Reddit account, so I can't like it. But if you want to like it, you can. And like I said, I'll link this. I'll link it, and you guys can check it out for yourself.